homies, because I'm from Gdynia, like sort of homies, you know. It depends on how you put it, and if you're like a soccer fan or not. Good. So that's the first fun fact about me, that I came from Gdynia. It was like hell of a trip, but I really like coming to Poznan. Every single time I come, this is the second time, and I love it. And the second fun fact, and I'll be done with fun facts, is that maybe I don't look like this, but I'm just about to turn 26 in 22 days. I know it's the beard, that's the whole story. And why am I telling you this? Not to brag. I'm telling you this to show you that I think I was super lucky, because I was born in the moment when I can actually combine what we call old school and new school, right? So in other words, like traditional methods and the Generation Z philosophy, right? And I think it's perfect, because going to any of extremes, like, you know, being too like conservative and being too traditional, right, slows you down, because you're not adapting to what is happening right here, right now. On the other hand, if you're like too modern, if you are too Generation Z, you actually turn to the person who keeps like spending their life on Facebook or Snapchat or any other platform, like he's having trouble connecting with other people, and it's all about the likes, it's all about the fame, it's all about, you know, these hormones, right? And I think combining these two things leads to very interesting results. And what I mean by interesting results is, like, as I was asked to talk about like our case study, I didn't want to actually talk about us, I mean the company. I wanted to show you something that comes from the experience that we've been through. Because I started doing this in January 2014. Just like 3.5 years ago, not that long ago, and went from 0 to almost 400 active users. But actually, I should call them not users, but like real people using the service, coming to the office and having, you know, the old school product, like using the old school product, which is the English course, right? The English itself might be called a little bit innovative, but I wouldn't go too far over there. But I want to focus on is that, you know, basically having zero experience, being like 22, not having entrepreneurial parents, and like, you know, like having all the odds like against me and us. And eventually we went from 0 to 400 customers as we are speaking, and 31 people in the team right now serving those customers. And I don't have that many talents, to be honest. I'm not the product guy, I'm not the data guy. Like, I don't have talents. What I do have, though, is basically deep belief in people, and I always did. Deep belief in being good, and let's use this word, converting this good spirit, this good energy into business results. And as our story proves, this I'll tell you more in a second. Does it make sense so far? Nobody wants to go home? Good. I consider this as first small success. Good. Oh, and we don't have wonderful presentation I created like for the purpose of this meeting. So let me start with a short story. When it comes to, I think, achieving success in any field, it can be, you know, we can go into growth hacking, we can go into business, we can go into, you know, building relationships, whatever it is. There was a situation 4 years ago. I was having the training, I was like running the workshop. It was focused on, you know, this methodology called getting things done. Are you familiar with the thing? Like, okay, I can see like one hand, one person nodding. Okay, fine. So let's say 5 or 10 people. For those of you who don't know, getting things done is like, you know, the technique to boost your not creativity but productivity, right? So, you know, to handle your tasks basically in a better way. And, you know, I was having some training, sharing what I know about this and how I use this with a bunch of people. And then after like an hour and a half, one person is like standing up and saying, "I need to go." I'm like, okay, fine. Is there anything you would like to share with us when it comes to the conclusions? And she's like, and like most of the people in the room were between 20 and 30. She was 45, maybe 50, like more or less. And she's like, you know what? Like, and she turned to everyone, like she was basically like turning around and talking to everyone because like she was in the middle of it. And this is what she said. And it really, like, you know, it made me think, and it inspired me to share this with you here. That's what she said. You know, all the techniques and the apps and the ways to improve your productivity, they are great, and this is not an irony. They're great, they are needed, they help us. But there's one technique, let's call it a device you need to use to make sure that you trump all the techniques. That one technique, universal technique, that actually helps you do anything you want. You need to use this device, sit on your ass and do the work. And I know it might sound like stupid or too simple, or like, no, and I came to this event for this, for somebody like to clap his ass. I think that you already know everything you need to know. You keep debating, you keep thinking, you keep wondering, like, should I do this? Should I approach it this way? Should I talk to this person? Or should I start this project? So there's not enough doing. There's too much thinking and meeting and strategizing without the fucking execution, right? And I think this is what she meant, even though like she didn't use, all the like the sheets and facts that I'm using right now. So this is, I think, the most important thing I will start with. And how it connects to our story is that, as I said, I'm not the product guy, I'm not the data guy. I will not tell you how to squeeze more out of your Google Analytics or your Facebook ads. Like, I know nothing about such things, right? But what I do things about, here's the flip chart, is I believe we are slowly but surely moving to, let's call it the third era. Let's start with the times when there was like the communism. So there are many not so healthy, things in the society and the country. And the way people built relationships back then can be described as the bank robbery. What I mean by this is that when you go and you want to rob the bank, you basically don't give a shit about anybody inside. You just want to, suck as much as you can from those suckers who are having the money. Which, in other words, means when it comes to building relationships that, this is how we used to think when there was communism mostly, right? Which is, you have to get as much as you can from the customers without actually caring about them. You need to, squeeze the lemon when it comes to your employees, but in a bad way, right? Without respecting them, without really building any connection. You're just going to use it fully. It doesn't matter, if anybody gets hurt or you don't care about relationships. You just want to get whatever the shit is you want. But then some people started figuring out that basically we can actually build better loyalty and long-term relationships, business structures, whatever it is, by using people as ATMs, right? Which is, I give something to you, and then I demand, yes, I use this word on purpose, I demand, that you actually return this. So, I give you a favor, you give me a favor, right? If you don't, then you are a loser. This is how most people think. We don't like to admit this, but basically if we help other people, then we expect them to help us. If they don't, for any reason, we think of them as you used me, you beep, or that, right? I don't think it makes too much sense to me. And I started, wondering how to put the last, let's say, the era, but the last philosophy, which is, I think, to call it the best, it's a weird word, but I think it's the most practical and the best from the context of doing good to the world and feeling good with the people around you and making them feel good, and at the same time getting whatever you want in life, whatever the objective is. And I would call it the philosophy of investment fund. What I mean by this is basically, the purpose of this, is to keep adding and adding and adding and adding, stacking up that money or whatever the resource is, and then maybe, possibly, sometime in the future, using this to build something, right? How it transfers to relationships is that I think that most people think of other people with the philosophy of, you have to build, you have to gain my trust. You have to, when people start relationships, what they think about is you need to, we don't admit it to ourselves even, but we think you have to do things to earn my trust. You have to do things to earn my trust. So they are going like this. And I'm going a different direction. I'm actually trusting every single person in my life in advance, from the very beginning. As long as they are proving that that they are worth it, but there's some sense in trusting them, right? So in other words, most people think that other people need to earn their trust. I believe that people need to lose my trust. Does it make sense of what I'm saying? Because I got twisted a bit with my story. Are you sure? Good, perfect. I'm just checking your attention. So if we start thinking like this, we realize that first, it's much easier to create deep relationships with many people, and I think that both the quality and the quantity of relationships matter. I think that we should actually look at 2 of those indicators. And let's use this. Like, I know I have skills when it comes to art. I know. I was practicing a lot. So, no. Like, basically, like, every person in this room, for me, is the dot. And we are the dots to each other. Let's call it, the beginning of our relationship, of our, like, relationship, friendship, however you call it, right? And then we have the timeline of each relationship. Of course, we will have it like for all of them. And here, like at the end of the timeline, we have like 2 possible scenarios. The first one is positive, which is like we die, and yeah, it's positive. And the negative is basically that for some reason we decide like not to continue the relationship because, I don't know, somebody did something bad, etc. Right? But this space here is basically like the next, I don't know, next 10, 15, 20, maybe like 50 years, and then like some person dies and the relationship finishes, right? So this is like very hard to define, but let's not focus on this. What I wanted to focus on is that by first realizing that, I trust people in advance, and second, thinking like an investment fund, so like adding, and then basically having the interest rate, let's say, work for me, I think in a very similar way when it comes to relationships. Because I believe that, every single person in this room right now, this is my intention at least, is basically benefiting somehow from the speech that I'm giving, right? So this is my first, let's say, small favor. Let's call it small favor, like the good energy sent in your direction, right? And then let's say after the event, I would stay in touch with three people from this room on Facebook, and then a week later, some person will ask, Wiktor, you mentioned this thing, I don't know, this article or this person, like, can you, like, I cannot recall it. Can you tell me what it was? And I'm like, okay, sure, fine. So like in like using the Messenger or any other platform, I'll just, send it. So this is like another small thing that I'm like adding to the relationship, right? And basically by like adding as many as possible and then using the philosophy. It wasn't invented by me, but some other people, maybe not the best people in the world, but I like the word because it's like it stimulates the creativity, which is, here it's about blitzkrieg. So coming from like everywhere and being everywhere and interacting with every single person that is on our life's path. Because then if we accumulate so many of those dots and if we start investing in those relationships, right? So like having like really many of them, and basically being focused on how can I help you or what can I give you, but not to manipulate you, not to come one day and ask you so I helped you and right now you fucker, you need to do it for me because I did 5 things before. No, then it's a trick, then it's a manipulation, then it's a technique. And I think a person doing something like this is, I don't know how to call it, but not the best word. But like differently, if we think of this as the karma bank or like however else we can call it, if we keep investing as much as possible by helping people in like many ways, then after some time we end up in a situation in which we have like an army of people around us that are willing to help us. They have the reason to help us, but they can still say, you know what, I don't feel like helping, I don't know, it's like, I see a conflict of interest, etc., right? And because, many people think, and this is not my metaphor, they think in a way like give and take, right? So like demand, I gave you, so they are thinking as the ATM, right? Because if you insert money into ATM, then you want to get it back, right? If it doesn't give it back to you, you're going to kick the ATM and call the bank and where's my fucking money, right? But if you think like about people as ATMs, and most people do, let's admit it, then I think it's very hard to build like really like long-lasting relationships that are really beneficial for both sides. And like getting to the core of the story. Once you have so many people right here, and you are investing as much as you can into those relationships, then one day you have an army of people willing to help you. And what can lead to? For example, we've been doing something we call Social English Night. And Social English Night are like weekly open meetings with English language in like 3 locations in Poland. We are just about to go to Poznań in September. And the concept is like, I will not go into details, but they're like weekly, they're free, like totally free, there's no trick. And people can practice English for 90 minutes every single week. It's like hard for me to connect with those guys, and no surprise they are spending their time on smartphones because of this thing. So, and we've been doing this for like more than a year right now. So we've organized, in Gdynia more than 50 editions, in Gdańsk about 20 editions because we started later, and in Warsaw also about 20 editions. So we have, I think, almost 100 editions of weekly meetings, right? And those weekly meetings, so we have 3 locations times 30, because this is more or less how many people come to every single meeting every week, times 4, which is, the number of weeks in a month, right? So we basically have like this. So if I calculate well, it's 360 interactions, right? Because some people like come more often. This is like 360. This is my math, because I can see some people doing like 3, 6, 1. Like a lot. It's good? Good, perfect. I know. I suck when it comes to making things look good. Like, look at me. So we have 360 interactions of this sort every month. It's impossible not to, let's call it, succeed in this case. Because, yeah, I prefer to call these people friends, right? But from business standpoint, we call them, the brand ambassadors that we can convert into leads and then convert into like paying customers, user, whatever we want to call it, right? And of course, it's not like, the concept for such meetings is not universal for every industry or product, but I'm just showing you the pattern. I'm just showing you the philosophy of thinking that like we are like for the last year, when it comes to such meetings, we are focused on providing as much value as possible to those guys and girls attending such meetings. So then people ask me like, so what's the conversion rate, or what's the business objective behind it? And I'm like, and then the first question is, like the follow-up question is, so is it about the customers? I mean, no, this is not why we are doing this. So is it about, people coming and like to work for you? I'm like, it happens, but this is not the main objective. So what's the objective, Wiktor? Like, it makes no sense. And I'm like, it's about providing so much value to the world that then you don't have to worry about you paying your bills, because the world will help you. And now it may sound spiritual, and like for some people, like people especially like the rational oriented, it may sound like what is the kind of bullshit this guy is providing. And what I learned in life is that, I don't understand most of the things, but if I see that something works, I don't ask further questions. I just go and do it and use it. And this is what I do, and I did here, basically, right? I don't know how it happens that basically, I'm not tracking down every possible lead, every possible, favor that I'm giving. I'm not then tracking down if I get an ROI on this, right? So the return on investment. I'm not doing this. I'm not the Excel guy too, like the data guy, as I mentioned, right? But from what I can tell you, the net score, the final score, summing up all, the favors and the good, signals that I sent to the world, to the people, it converted like crazy, right? Because as I said, in 3 years, we are basically having almost 400 like active customers paying for the courses, which are not cheap, because the lowest price per hour is 80 zlotys, the lowest. And these are like individual classes, right? So if you compare it with the average of the market, this is fucking expensive. So yeah. And basically, we got there not by being fancy and aiming this at, let's say, the CEOs and the presidents, because for them this would be cheap. We are aiming this at like regular people, basically, right? So this is sort of expensive for them, but still, the connection, the bond is so strong that they prefer to come to us, because they believe, they trust us, because we trusted them, that they know that we are going to do a good job for them. Does it make sense so far? Good, perfect. All right, what else do we have on the agenda? Just to make sure I don't skip anything, because as you see, I'm so emotional, I tend to jump from topic to topic. Good, so we have this. So when it comes to content, I know that there are many people who are more qualified to talk about content than I am. I'm in content marketing, which you're already familiar with, I bet. But what I do believe in is that, like, one of the ways to do this, sorry for doing this. So one of the best ways of doing this, giving value to other people, is by providing the content that solves some of the problems, but you already know it. What I want to tell you is that, once again, you keep thinking, you keep debating, you keep looking for the perfect post that will change your business and your life. You're looking for this perfect picture and this perfect sentence. And while you are doing this, I've already produced like 10 fucking pieces of content that were published, and they already got some attention, and they got some traction, and I got some feedback, and I can, improve on this. And you keep thinking and reading another freaking blog, or another ebook, or another course, or another conference like this. And you already know this. You already know all of the things that I'm telling you right now, and the guy that's going to present after me and after the other guy. You already know this stuff. And you don't need us to tell us. Like, what you need us for is like to kick you in the butt, as the metaphor, of course. So when it comes to content, I think that, as I said, when it comes to technical aspects, I don't want to go into this. But when it comes to like philosophy of this, I believe that if you are good enough, if you know what you are talking about, if you are like good with what you are doing, with what you are creating, because like doing something well and communicating it well are two separate things, then just put as much, good content as you can. Like doing it five times a day. Even though the statistics show that it's maybe not the best idea, I would go into this. Because the more you do, the more you learn. And the more you provide, the more chances for the people, you give more chances to the people to see the content. And it's not about the numbers that much, or maybe not as much as we think it is, right? Because I prefer to have like 100 people who are just, let's say, seeing the post, which is not a phenomenal score. But I want this one person out of this 100 to be the decision maker that changes the course and the direction of my life, of my business, of some relationship, right? And I'm like, I've been doing content for the last 5 or 6 years. In the beginning, it just started with, let's say the pains of a young man, right? The posts were like, why are people cruel to each other and they are not kind, right? So like this kind of horse crap. But I needed to start with this to give myself the position to keep improving. How much time do I have left? I'm done? I need to know how much time I have left, more or less. Yes, I need to be done.
We need to wrap it up.
Oh, good, perfect. So 5 minutes and I'm done. But I'll go to the finito. So, because I started this, I started doing the thing that I showed like on the previous slide here, right? So I started adding up to the relationships, and then you may laugh about it, but I'm sort of proud of the fact that I have like 2,000 friends on Facebook, because it's not about the number. I'm not like getting excited with this. I'm getting excited with the fact that I'm actually I opened probably more than 2,000 relationships, and with like most of them, I stay in touch, let's say, using content, but then let's say 50% of people who are seeing the content are also interacting with me, using the private messages and the comments and like whatever the form of communication is. But the more I put, like this is what I observed. I did the tests, this was like one of very, very few moments in which I was basically checking any sort of data. I basically, I was doing experiments with like publishing content only from time to time and like really making it perfect. And on the other hand, like publishing as much as possible, as long as it made sense. And the moment I switched to as much as possible, then the magic started happening. Then the demand for Wiktor Jodłowski is like fucking through the roof. And everybody wants to join Talkersi. Everybody wants to like work for the company and be the client. And everybody keeps recommending us, right? But because of the intensity, because of the blitzkrieg, so being everywhere with everything and just, like hitting. And most people, they wake up at 9 and then they go to the office and at 10 and they start. I was disconnected?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if that was on purpose though. I don't think that was.
I get paid to talk, so this is why I talked.
Was this this is a malfunction? This was not on purpose.
Oh, goodness.
We're not that mean.
I can continue without it. 2 minutes?
So if you could wrap it up in 2 minutes, that would be good.
Can you hear me well, everyone in the room?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Wait, no, this one is not.
What about the other?
Are we good?
Can you check? Just continue without the microphone, but if you could check.
This thing?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the mic.
Hello?
Yeah, good. Perfect. Actually, I had like a best final sentence. Because I went in my zone and I started screaming, and I think it was a good essence of the speech. But I think, like, to wrap it up, I think that, like, coming back to the thing I started with, which is let's combine old school with new school. Let's combine the hard work for many, many years connected with patience of our parents with the young spirit and the technology that is provided by the people who are 20, 25, right? Let's combine these two things. And on one hand, let's focus on real people and real relationships. but let's scale it using, tools like Facebook Messenger, or comments, or any sort of content, or like freaking streaming the video that's like being streamed right now, right? Let's use as much as possible, because what we want to do here is to build exposure. And our parents, like the only option they had was this, right? And it, like when they wanted to promote anything or get to know anybody, they had to go to such conference. They were like super like lucky if they had the opportunity to be the speaker. There was no like nothing like live streaming. There was nothing like Facebook. There was nothing like staying in touch later, because they only had a chance to talk like to 5 people who approached them afterwards, right? So like the opportunities to scale it were like super limited. What we can do here is like to really squeeze the lemon, but in an ethical way, using the investment fund strategy, not the ATM strategy. And this is what I'm encouraging you to do, and I'm shutting myself up. Thank you.
Okay, please clap it up for Wiktor. Any questions for Wiktor's open-mindedness about the world and the fact that he wants to push content a lot without thinking about the ROI? That's the philosophy, right?
Yeah.
The blitzkrieg of output. Any questions? I'll give you some time. Let's make this an open discussion. It doesn't have to be questions, can be comments, anything that's crossing your mind.
Is there anybody who just wants to say that I'm stupid because of the philosophy? Shit.
Sure you are.
Oh, my man. Yes.
You want to ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, good. Here's the mic.
Hi, I'm Julia, and I'm
Yes,
wondering
hello,
whether
Julia.
you were somehow inspired by the book Give and Take by Adam Grant.
This is the first time I hear about the book and the
So
guy.
you don't have to read it anymore.
Oh, good. I got the. Okay, perfect. Lucky me. This is what we call productivity, GTD.
Any more questions?
Oh, perfect. Prepare the next question, meanwhile.
So, apart from free courses, any other way you invest in people?
You mean, but like specifically like the potential, let's say the target market or the employees, like because there are like many groups.
Any other thing you can think of?
So basically what we do is like the first is like the social English nights, so the weekly events, and like we keep expanding this to other locations. So this is like the biggest machine, let's call it so, right? The second thing is that we run groups on Facebook that are dedicated, to let's say like to helping people with breaking the barrier of speaking. So it's also providing value. There's like no sales. The only sales that we do is like we do the branding. So there's like logo and that's it. So this is what we do, and we have like weekly formats. So it has like its purpose and has its structure. I go to conferences and meetings like this. I do one-to-one interactions. So if somebody is approaching me, because many people they say that we do marketing well, I think this is okay. And they are like, Wiktor, would you advise me on the project? I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's meet for 30 minutes an hour, and I'm not charging for that time. I'm just helping. I'm giving in advance. So that's pretty much it. I try to avoid, being to define myself as the business person or business advisor, because I want to be more focused on, of the core product as we are hitting the B2C market, not B2B. So this is it. Is there anything else? Tons of content using both my personal profile, because I consider myself as a personal brand, so it has to be done with having the head in the right place. And on the other hand, the fan page itself is also like structured with some purpose. We actually have an in-house team of in-house marketing team, 3 people on payroll, and the only thing they do is like they keep putting content around me, around the concept, around the method. And these are the ways, like the things that come to my mind very quickly.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
Got another question.
Yeah. Oh. So she's staying in shape because of you guys. She can like run around. And, Actually, I could use some of it.
Hello, I'm Dea.
Hello.
I would like to ask that do you post anywhere else than in Facebook your news feeds?
Actually, this is perfect timing because today I started like really investing in Instagram.
Okay.
But these are like the only 2 platforms because like I don't get Snapchat, like I don't understand it. Like technically I do, but like I don't feel what clicks.
Okay.
So then I'm not going to push myself to do it there. So basically these are the only 2 platforms. Like Facebook, like I'm everywhere, and Instagram, I'm like I have few posts, maybe not more than few, but I was doing this without any point of any strategy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay.
Oh, 2 questions. I like it.
No, there is.
So, hi. You mentioned that.
And your
she
name
used to-
is?
Natalia.
Natalia, hello.
So, you mentioned that she used to post a lot of content at the very beginning, so you basically went into quantity, perhaps, over quality a little bit?
In the beginning, yes. And the thing is, quality is very subjective. Because,
yes,
you know,
I know, but weren't you worried that you'd scare some people off if it wasn't good enough?
I was okay with this because I think that, you know, there's the price of being authentic. So if I wasn't able to like really provide like superb content because I wasn't superb, let's say, at the time, like I provided like the best I could because I couldn't more. So like I couldn't do better, right? So I did the best I could. And the more I did, the better I became. And I'm not, you know, I'm not freaking out when it comes to people saying, you know, that this makes no sense, or I don't like Wiktor, I don't agree with the philosophy. I'm okay with this because I think that's the price of creating like a very strong bond with the other side of the story. Look at Apple. Like most people think it's horse crap, but they're like, there is a group, probably like here's the other group, like that thinks like this is like phenomenal product. But there are many people who think like you're overpaying for something you can get for like 50% of the price, right? So this is of course like a very, very colorful example, and I'm not for sure I'm not as good as Apple, and we are not as good as Apple, but I think the direction is good. So I was okay with basically documenting the journey and sharing the best conclusions I could get.
As long as it was genuine and it came from you. Really,
exactly.
then it was fine.
As long as it wasn't fake, it wasn't pretending,
I
and
get it.
people know they respond to authenticity. So
Yeah, they respond to that. Thanks.
yeah. There was somebody else.
Anyone else?
Here. The guy who thinks I'm full of shit. I like it.
Hi, my name is Igor, and my
Hello, Igor.
question is, what is the criteria of good content?
It's subjective, and I don't think I can tell you. It's subjective. I think that the best content is the one that it will sound like very spiritual, as I said. It comes from heart. It comes from something you really experienced, right? Like very simple thing, like very simple example that comes to my mind. It's like one of the like formats that we have on the groups and on our fan page is that we have like, you know, on Friday you get we recommend a movie to watch, right? And like the easiest thing in the world, like you can go to Film Web and select something which is like, you know, top 10 and then just keep posting like, oh, what a value, right? But this, like if you didn't watch it, then it's not authentic. Like we only share things that we watched. Like this is like a very, very like naive, very, very simple example of this. So I think that it just has to be like super authentic. It has to come from your journey. It cannot be like it can, but I don't know how to handle content which is not coming from the natural experience of the organization or the person. So I would say authentic. This is the criteria basically, right?
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Mariusz.
Hello, Mariusz.
I'd like to know, because you say your language learning method's creative, but you said it's nothing very interesting. Is there anything innovative in the method itself?
I think it's a challenging topic because it's hard to come up with something sexy for something so old as like, you know, learning the language. Of course, there is a way. You know, the thing that we do is that, like, to really like wrap it up and make it quick, we do something that is called immersion. And probably some of you like heard the word immersion. The metaphor I like using is basically it's like swimming. So basically, like let's think of the language as the water in the swimming pool. So if you jump to the water, right, you are surrounded with this like from every possible direction. And the same goes with learning the language, and the same goes with any other skill that you are trying to build, which is, you know, like examples. Switch the software to English, right? Get an English friend, come to English events, you know, change the subtitles, keep watching TED without Polish subtitles every day, right? Like go to, weekly meetings like Social English Night. Basically, supply your life with as much English content online and offline as possible. And then this is where the magic happens. And I believe it's with any other skill in life, but it can also be transferred to this, right? So this would be the innovative element. Because most of the Polish schools, they go with the traditional method, right? So having the book and the grammar and stuff like this. Or on the other hand, they are doing just the conversation, right? Which I think is not enough. There are like some few elements that you have to add to the conversation, and then the magic happens.
So just conversation all the time?
I would say interaction, not only conversation, but interaction. Using social media, use it in English. Like use the internet in English. So if you go to Google, don't type in like jak ugotować zupę, but how to make a soup, right? And then you start thinking in this language. If you do research in this, then you go to English content, and this makes you think in English. So the like blitzkrieg thing, right? Blitzkrieg. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Not so much, I can. Maybe there's something else you would like to. Okay, good.
Okay, so clap it up once again for Wiktor.
Thank you.